In Mark 135, we saw that Jesus wakes up early in the morning when it's still very dark outside, slips out of Peter's house where he stayed sleeping, and he goes to a secluded place to pray. And we commented on the fact that Mark is clearly foreshadowing the resurrection, the morning of the resurrection. So that morning is the morning of the first day after the Sabbath, very early in the morning, exactly like the women wake up early in the morning to go to the tomb. And very early in the morning, when it's dark, Jesus rises up. He's resurrected. In Mark 136, which is the verse that we're going to go over today, we're going to get two more concepts. It's a very small, short verse, probably the shortest we've ever seen so far, but it contains two good main ideas that I want to go over with you today. So let's read Mark 136. Kai kate dioxen auton Simon kai hoi metautu. Very short verse, as I told you. So it starts, as always, with a kai, which is the conjunction. And then there is the verb. This is the principal verb. There's only one verb in this sentence. And the subject is Simon Peter, right? So this is the subject. Together with kai and o hoi metautu. Now, we're going to see what this means, but this is basically subject number two. So it's Peter, subject number one, and then hoi, metautu, subject number two, where this metautu is a prepositional phrase. Prepositional phrase introduced by this preposition meta. All right, we're going to go over it. And auton is the last word of the sentence, is the direct object. So very simple. You have a subject, you have a verb, and you have an object. So now let's try to translate. All right, let's start from the subject. We said there are two subjects, Simon, which is Simon Peter, Kai, and hoi metautu. All right, so we've seen this hoi many times as definite article in general. And hoi is a masculine plural nominative case because, of course, it's a subject. All right. So in this case, this definite article is used as a pronoun and it means those. All right. It's Simon and those met out to. All right. Meta to. What is meta to? It's a prepositional phrase, as we said, where you have the preposition, which is meta, and then the pronoun out to. Okay. Now, what happens when these two alphas at the end of the first word and this other alpha at the beginning of the next word clash together? Well, the first alpha drops and you get this apostrophe here. All right, so that's why you get this apostrophe. But the preposition is meta, and meta wants the genitive. All right, you see it here. This omicron upsilon ending, we know it is a genitive masculine singular. All right, and autos is the third person singular pronoun. We've seen it many times, means he, him, and so on. So meta wants the genitive, and meta may have many different meanings according to the context, but in this case means with. All right, meta plus genitive means with somebody. All right, company. So it's those with him. All right. So the subject is Simon and those with him. Who are those with him? Well, we know that Jesus had stayed there to sleep in the house of Simon Peter because he had healed his mother-in-law and that he had spent the whole night healing all the people that were coming from everywhere to be healed. So those with Simon were very likely the very first disciples, so very likely Simon's brother, Andrew, and also James and John, who were the very first disciples. But it's very likely there were probably other disciples there, and maybe within those with him were also all the people that early in the morning were still gathering there to wait for Jesus to wake up and heal them. So just common people that were just waiting for Jesus. All right. So there's a lot of people together with Simon. This is the point. And what do they do? Well, this is the verb, katedioxen. All right, katedioxen. Now, this verb, it's very interesting. Let's break it down. First of all, it's in the aorist tense, which is basically a past tense, and it's in the third person singular. This is also interesting because even if the subject is Simon plus those that were with him, the verb is conjugated in the third person singular, so it's mainly referring to Simon. All right. Second consideration: the verb comes from. Let's write it here. The base verb is kata dioko, like this. Kata dioko. All right, with an omega here, double omega. Okay, kata dioko. Now, this verb, as you can easily understand, is made up of two pieces, as usual in Greek. So the first piece is just a preposition, which is kata, and then there is the base verb, which is dioko. Now, kata, we've seen it a few times. It's a preposition that indicates a movement, a downward movement. Okay, so in general, it means down. Okay, and then there is the base verb dioko, which has this meaning of to hunt or to follow. Okay, but follow not just in the sense of, okay, I'm following somebody. No, I'm hunting down somebody. So to follow, to chase, in some cases, even to persecute. Okay, persecute in a hostile sense. So it can be used in a hostile sense, but also in a good sense when you are just searching for somebody, going after somebody, chasing somebody down. But it's a very strong verb, all right? And so together with the down, really this verb means to hunt down, to chase down, all right? And so Simon and those with him chased him down. Okay, where this him auton, the object is of course him referring to Jesus. All right, so Jesus was in this secluded place. He had slipped out of the house, nobody noticed, and so when they woke up, nobody knew where Jesus was, and so they started to chasing him down, to look for him everywhere. This is what Mark is saying. So this verse simply says, and Simon and those with him chased him down, looked for him desperately, we could say. Now, two considerations that I think are worthy emphasizing. Number one, the ability of Mark in describing a lot with few words. This is something that is very peculiar to Mark among all the evangelists. We already talked about this. Mark, in his gospel, more than writing or more than narrating a story, he is painting a story. And he's doing it with quick brushes that leave a lot unsaid, but it is easily understood. Okay. In this particular case, we saw in Mark 135 that Mark says that Jesus raised up early in the morning when it was already dark, got out of the house, and went away in a secluded place to pray. And then quickly in Mark 136, next verse, we read, and Simon chased him down. Okay, so there's a big temporal gap there, okay, that we can, of course, imagine. So you can imagine what? Well, you can imagine that when the sun came up and when the disciples, Peter, his brother Andrew, and the other disciple there, and probably all the people that maybe slept outside of the door, waiting for Jesus to heal them, woke up. They immediately realized that Jesus was not there anymore. And so you can understand how confused they were, how puzzled they were. Where is Jesus? Where did he go? Right? Did he leave us? What's going on here? And so you can imagine how distressed they were. They needed to find him. Where did he go? And so probably they started looking around in the house. They didn't find him. And they went outside and started looking outside the backyard, whatever, and they couldn't find him. And this is what Mark is saying without saying it. All right. And this verb, katedioxen, he chased him down, he hunted him down. Understand, it's very strong. It's one of those quick brushes that Mark uses that says it all, right? It's like they're hunting him down. It's like a scavenger hunt. Simon and everybody, they started going everywhere to search for him. So, first consideration, the beauty of Mark in the ability of Mark in describing vividly as if we could see that. Second consideration, the big grammatical mistake that Mark makes here. What do you mean grammatical mistake? Well, we talked about it, right? The subject, remember, is Simon and those with him. And then there is the verb that you cannot appreciate in the English translation, because in English, the verb is always the same if it's first person, second person, singular, plural. You cannot understand from the verb which person it is. And especially if it's singular or plural, right? If I say he chased him down or they chase him down, the verb chase him down is always the same. But in Greek, it's not like that. The verb tells you already if the subject that performed that action is singular or plural. In this case, the verb is conjugated in the third person singular. So you have the subject, which is plural, Simon and those with him, and the verb that does not agree with the subject because the subject is plural and the verb is singular. What is going on here? Is Mark making a very rough grammatical mistake? No, of course not. So what is Mark trying to say to us here? Well, he's saying to us that really the subject that is most important in this verse is Simon. Simon chased him down, and those with him too. That is the real literal translation of this verse. And Simon chased him down, and those with him also. All right. So those with him is something that is almost separate from Simon, like an appendix of Simon. Is Simon Peter that initiates the search for Jesus and the one that really is chasing him down. The others follow. And this disconnect with the plural subject and the singular verb is very indicative of this. Mark has in mind that the guy that is leading the search is Simon. And in fact, everybody else is treated as, and those with him. He doesn't even mention them. Okay, we need to guess who they are, right? So what is the concept here? Well, the concept is that right in the beginning of the Gospel of Mark, which again, let's remember, is probably the very first gospel that was written. In the very first chapter of the very first gospel is absolutely clear. And here we're still at the very beginning of Jesus' ministry. The very beginning. This in the Gospel of Mark is the very first day of public ministry. Okay. Probably was not the first day, but it's the first day that is narrated in the gospel. And in the very first day narrated in the gospel of Jesus' ministry, Simon is already depicted as the one that is the leader of the apostles, the one that takes the initiative, and the one that is identified as the one that goes after Jesus, that follows Jesus, that search for Jesus, that is most in love with him. The primacy of Peter is right here from the very beginning in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 1.